Hello, my name is Elizabeth Pallante and welcome to my Action Research Project presentation. The title of my Action Research Project is RAS Kids and its Effect. The topic for my Action Research presentation is an attempt at increasing students' reading comprehension. So in my current third grade classroom, there is a handful of students who are far behind in their reading level, some as much as 2 years behind. So using RAS Kids is an attempt to close that reading gap with my students. My research question is, to what extent, if any, does RAS Kids have on students' reading comprehension? So to begin, I wanted to give you a little bit of background information about RAS Kids and show you exactly what it looks like through a student's point of view. So RAS Kids is a reading intervention that's used for 15 minutes per day in my classroom, where students log on and the first time they get to create a robot, and that's their icon, and it's really motivating for the students. And once they're on and all set up with RAS Kids, they can go into a reading room, and in that reading room is a variety of books for them to read on their reading level. And they get to read those books and take quizzes on them. And once the quizzes are taken, it asks them questions from reading standards in that reading level, and it either has them pass the reading quiz or not pass. If they didn't pass the quiz, then it gives them the opportunity to reread and retake that quiz. And if they did pass, it shows that they earn stars, and stars shoot out on the page, and it's very motivating for students to earn those stars, and they really get to rack them up and earn things in RAS Kids. So to begin, I'm going to actually get out of this presentation right now and show you what it looks like from a student's point of view. So here we have a student page of a student's RAS Kids. So as you see, this student is at a level Q reading level, and it ends at a level R, so it's Q to R, and the bar up top shows them how far they've come along in that reading level. So as you see, this student kind of just started the level Q, but as you read more books and pass more quizzes, it goes up. And in order to get all the way to a level R, you have to read all the books in their library and pass all the quizzes. So to just show you an example of what reading a book in RAS Kids looks like, I'm going to go in and show you the Buffalo Soldiers. So as you could see, you have the chance to listen to, read, and take a quiz. You can't complete a book until all three of those things are done. And actually, through a teacher, you can choose to turn off the listening part too if you think a student, if you don't want a student to use it, like if you want to see if they can just read silently and comprehend something, that's okay. You could turn that off on the teacher's end. But for now, I'm going to show you what reading the Buffalo Soldiers looks like. And there's also variety from fiction to nonfiction, biographies, informational. It really goes on and on. So here you have
The Buffalo Soldiers, written by Anna Maria Crum.
And as you see, it even highlights the letters that they're reading.
Although the Civil War ended slavery in the United States, Black people still faced discrimination. It was hard for them to find work. When they did, they were often paid less than white workers.
So I'm just going to pause it right now so you can see that as the book is reading, it highlights the words so that they can easily follow along. And again, you could turn that off if you would like to. So as you move on from page to page, when you're done reading the book, it says, woohoo, I earned 10 stars just for reading the book. So even if a student doesn't pass the quiz, it still gives them a reward for reading the entire book. And so then it says that we listened to. It does not say we read it, because as you see, I just clicked really fast through it, and this program monitors it, which is probably one of my favorite things about this, because those students who are saying they're reading, but they're really just clicking really fast through it, it stops them from doing that, and they can't move on to the next reading level until they actually read the whole entire thing. So I'm going to now just show you briefly what the quiz looks like by pressing the question mark, and my class policy is when you're doing RAS Kids, you have to read the book and take the quiz. So here the first question, what is the most likely reason the author wrote the Buffalo Soldier? So that goes along with the reading standard of the author's purpose. Why did the author write that? So every question is geared toward a certain standard so that on my end I could see which skills they're really awesome with and which skills we might need a little bit more work with. So I'm going to get out of here for now, but when they're done taking the quiz, if they pass it, stars like come all over the page, and the students absolutely love it, and they keep track of getting as many stars as they can, and it helps them build parts of the robot icon. It's really awesome. So as you see here, this is time active in Raz Kids. So this is part of the reading dashboard. Excuse me, can you zoom? This is part of the dashboard from the teacher's end. So I just wanted to show you now, since we saw what a student page looks like, what the teacher's page looks like. So here on this side, normally the names are there, but I cut them off for confidentiality purposes. So it shows you the amount of logins they have, their login time, so how many minutes they've been on it, and the stars that they've accumulated. Here's the incentive time, which is another thing where you can keep track of if they're actually on task or not, which is awesome. So their incentive time is the amount of time that they're building their robot and they're checking their stars and all that and not actually reading the books. So you can see like some students, like this student spent 9 minutes just on building their robot, so they are not as actively reading as the other students. So that's something you can call the students up on to just remind them what the point of using Raz Kids is. The next part of the teacher side of Raz Kids is this is student scores and specific standards. So I talked about viewing the specific standards, and this helps me kind of guide my instruction sometimes. Like this shows identifying, setting, and is it reality or fantasy, and story elements. The students are really doing awesome in. So overall we have 100% and 98% in that. But something that my class needs a little bit more work on is identifying genre, factor, opinion, and author's point of view. So those are some things that maybe I could spend a little bit more time in my teaching. And the last thing I'd like to show you from the teacher's point of view in Raz Kids is the progress made in the reading levels. So again, on the left side is normally the students' names that I cut off. So it shows you their name and how far along they are in that reading level. Like this student is at a level G, but she or he is 40% along in that reading level. Like this person here is 85% along in a level J. They're almost at the level K. And then you can also go into specific students and it gives you their overall growth. Like for example, how many reading levels that student has jumped, and that helped me to gather my data when I was analyzing my data after this action research project. So moving on to the research part that I have done for the action research project, I found in research that using digital text increases motivation. So when a student is given a digital text such as Raz Kids, students are more motivated to read than students who are reading from paper books, which they're used to. Another thing kind of bouncing off of that is increasing motivation positively impacts reading comprehension. So when students are more motivated to read, they're more likely to understand the book. So the motivation coming from reading the digital text and earning the stars and building the robots is more motivating for them, so they tend to do well when they're motivated than when they're not motivated to read. And the last is that I found in research is that daily reading increases reading comprehension, and that has to do with my action research project because we used Raz Kids and read daily. So it was hopefully increasing their reading comprehension by doing that. Next, I'd like to talk to you about the research design that I chose. So quantitative data was collected, hard numbers that I could see from reading comprehension scores and their reading levels. And this was a case study approach. So I used quantitative data, which allowed the researcher, myself, to focus on one group of students and data trends regarding their comprehension skills over time. So my group of students was my class, and I looked at the data trends of their comprehension scores and their reading levels over the 3 weeks that they used Raz Kids. The participants in my action research project was, we are from a suburban school in southeastern Pennsylvania, and it's a middle to low socioeconomic status overall in the school. And it was my class of 24 third grade students. 11 of them are male and 13 of them are female. Their reading levels range from a first grade to a third grade reading level. And because of the variety of reading levels in my class, it was able to show the overall effectiveness of Raz Kids, whether you're 2 years behind in grade level or if you're on grade level. So it really showed me how effective this program really is for helping students' reading comprehension. For materials and measures, some of the things that I use is first is the 100 Book Challenge IRLA cold reads. So 100 Book Challenge is the district approved program that we use to level students and to test them on a rotating basis. So like every 2 weeks, meeting with kids and conferencing with them to determine their reading levels and give them goals and how to move on in those reading levels. So it starts by leveling the students. So I leveled them starting with word lists. So it's a word list and it moves along from reading level to reading level, and when a student can't read the words anymore, I jump back and that's where I start my cold read. So if they can't read anymore to 3rd grade reading level, I jump back to a 2nd grade reading level, and from there I give them a cold read, which is a passage that they have never read before, and from that I ask them 7 comprehension questions, and that is the comprehension test that I use to go along with this. So after they're given their baseline reading levels and comprehension scores, then I enter those into RAS Kids, and that's where they start their reading level in there. So the reading levels are recorded in RAS Kids, so when their 3 weeks was done, I was able to see what their reading level was in RAS Kids, and I just converted it to a grade level reading. So 0 being a kindergarten reading level, 1 being 1st grade, 2 being 2nd grade, 3 being 3rd grade, and all the decimals in between are how far along they are in that reading level. Here's a chart of my data collection that I created and used. It was really simple and straightforward and easy for me to keep track of my data. So on the left side are my students' names, their letters for confidentiality purposes. There I have their starting reading level. So that's how I talked about using the 100 Book Challenge IRLA to help me record those reading levels, and then I converted them to the grade level. And then their ending reading level. So that was calculated in RAS Kids on the teacher end that I showed you. In this column here is their starting comprehension score, so those 7 questions in their reading level, what percentage they got correct, and then their ending comprehension score. So again, I met with them again and gave them that comprehension test. And this is just the same data collection, but it's my 2nd group of students, so instead of A to N, it's M to X for their names, but it's the same columns. I'm now going to go over the procedures that I've done in my action research project. So first, students were assessed and placed into their reading level. So I just went over that process. And then the program was introduced to the first half of students. So I took half of my students and introduced them to RAS Kids in a really exciting way. So I told them how awesome RAS Kids is, how they're going to get to build a robot, and how every day they're going to get to use the computer and read the books, take the quizzes, and earn as many stars as they can. So they were thrilled and really excited about that. After that, students were able to choose their icons, review the program, and review the program with me as I modeled it. So I modeled to them what logging on to RAS Kids looks like, what their icon will be for their password, how they can create the robot, and then how most of the time will be spent on reading the books and what that looks like as well. So I went over, just like I did with you, how you have to read every single word in order for it to count, and how every single word is really important in reading a book. And then we went over what taking a quiz looks like, and I also showed them another feature on RAS Kids is that if you don't remember the answer to something that is a quiz question, you're able to go back into that book and find that answer. So it doesn't have to be all from memory. You can go back into the book and find it, just like we teach our students to go back into the passage and find their answers. So after all of that was modeled, it was done every day for 3 weeks for 15 minutes at a time. Once that group of students was done their 3 weeks, the same exact process was repeated for my 2nd group of students. So here we have the results of the reading levels before and after using RAS Kids. Down below I have the student names, so their letters, and on the side I have their reading level grade equivalent. So it goes from 0 to 3.5, so the middle of 3rd grade. On the left side, it has their reading level before the intervention, so before using RAS Kids, it's kind of like a green color. And then the right bar is the reading level after the intervention, so after using RAS Kids, which is the teal bar. So as you see, many of the students have increased in their reading level. So I found that 95% of students increased reading levels after using RAS Kids, and the mean before using RAS Kids was 2.09, and after using RAS Kids it was 2.24, so it was almost a quarter of the way, a quarter year progress just after using it for 3 weeks, which is really awesome. Here I have the results for comprehension scores before and after using RAS Kids. So again, the student names are at the bottom and the score is on the side. So it goes from 0 to 100. And on the left bar is the comprehension score in percent before the intervention, and the right side is the comprehension score after the intervention. So I found that 45.4% of students made progress in their reading comprehension scores. 45.4% of students made no changes in their reading comprehension scores, and 9.2% of students decreased in their reading comprehension scores. But overall, the mean before using RAS Kids was 50.86, and after it was 61.27%. So overall, the mean, they still made progress in the reading comprehension scores, and I just wanted to point out that the 45.4% that made no changes, so they kind of flatlined, 40% of that 45% were students who were already proficient, so they already had an 80% or above. So if they had a 100% the first time and they had 100% the second time, it still showed that they made no increase. However, it didn't hurt them. It could have helped them, but they got overall the same score. Or they might have gotten a 90% the first time and an 80% the second time. It wasn't that big of a deal, or that big of a gap. So in conclusion, I'm going to go over briefly, the purpose of this action research project was to determine to what extent, if any, does the intervention RAS Kids have on students' reading comprehension. This was used for 3 weeks at a time for each group of students, and overall I found that a positive correlation is suggested between the use of RAS Kids and students' reading comprehension. It is recommended that the students continue to use RAS Kids in the researcher's classroom in order to strengthen reading comprehension. So overall, this did have a really positive impact on my students, and I do plan on continuing to use it. So thank you very much for viewing my action research project presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.